Just when you think you can't be shocked anymore by Republicans in the age of Trump, this happens. Delegates to the Minnesota Republican Party's convention held a moment of silence over the weekend for Derek Chauvin, a former Minneapolis police officer, 6 years after he murdered George Floyd and touched off a national reckoning over policing and race. The Minnesota Star-Tribune adds, the brief moment of silent prayer for the former Minneapolis police officer convicted of second-degree murder in George Floyd's killing was not planned by party leaders, but it prompted swift condemnation from Democrats. The moment of silence came at the request of one of the roughly 2,300 delegates as the convention work began early Saturday morning. The Minnesota Republican Party chair said in a radio interview this week it wasn't part of the official program, but of course, he couldn't leave it there.
Well, that came from the body, of course. Didn't come from the dais. And the body elected to have that moment of silence. We had maybe 10 seconds or so. There are a lot of people, I think, that believe that Derek Chauvin was improperly convicted and not treated well. And those people wanted to have a moment of silence and recognition because they felt that way.
Do you agree with them?
Well, I don't think I'm going to comment on that. The court system had its verdict, and I'm not going to challenge the court.
Did you like the fact that a convicted murderer had a moment of silence at your convention?
I don't think I should comment on that.
Why not?
Well, because it indicates whether I do or don't agree with something that came out of the court. So I think I'll just let that pass.
I would like to know what there is to disagree with. We've all seen the horrifying, excruciating video of Derek Chauvin's knee on the back of George Floyd's neck for 9 minutes and 29 seconds as George Floyd cried, "I can't breathe." Chauvin went to trial and was subsequently convicted by a jury of second-degree murder, and that conviction was later upheld on appeal. Attorneys for George Floyd's family responded with a statement that reads in part, "The audacity of the Minnesota Republican Party to honor an individual who has both been convicted by a jury of his peers for the murder of a fellow human being, while at the same time violated a professional oath to protect and serve his community is disgusting. We call on Minnesota GOP leaders to issue an immediate retraction of this immoral act and issue an apology to the family of George Floyd and to the people of Minnesota that they serve." Joining us now, Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison, who led the state prosecution against Derek Chauvin. Attorney General Ellison, as always, thank you for coming to The Last Word. What did you think when you learned about that moment of silence?
I thought it was enormously cruel to the family of George Floyd, his daughter, his other children, his partner, who is still mourning his loss and grieving his loss. Quite honestly, Jonathan, I was shocked. I didn't quite believe it. I thought that somebody was, exaggerating. But then as I investigated, I found out, they really did have a moment of silence to the murderer, not the murdered. And they didn't have a moment of silence to the people killed in the Gulf War against Iran. They didn't have a moment of silence for law enforcement generally. Nobody, just the murderer, which lead me to believe that this is something that really must define them and their value system. This is not a partisan thing for me at all. This is a values thing. I thought we agreed that the rule of law mattered. I thought we agreed that thou shalt not kill was something that we should all live by. And I guess we don't. I guess we don't agree on that. And so the question becomes, why has no sitting Republican in Minnesota denounced this? I mean, Tom Emmer, congressman, has said, these people are, they're wrong for criticizing us for honoring a member of law enforcement. He's not a member of law enforcement. He ruined the reputation of people in law enforcement. He violated the oath and the badge that honorable professional members of law enforcement wear and swear to. he's the opposite of a member of law enforcement. So I would say that the way you started your show was right. Sometimes you think, just when you think you're not shockable, I was shocked.
You know, Attorney General, the New York Times reports, and I'm quoting here, in recent years, some conservatives have sought to reshape the narrative around Mr. Floyd's killing and have pushed President Trump to pardon Mr. Chauvin for his federal conviction. Christopher Rocco, a delegate from St. Paul who goes by the name Rocco, proposed the moment of silence on Saturday morning, describing Mr. Chauvin to his fellow delegates as someone, quote, who should get a state retrial, who should get a federal pardon. Audio of the exchange was recorded by the Minnesota Reformer, a local news outlet. Attorney General Ellison, how troubling is this narrative around pardoning Chauvin?
Well, it's deeply troubling because what it would do is send a message throughout the country that members of law enforcement who are operate in a professional manner, the ones who testified against Derek Chauvin, they're not to be followed, but the killers are to be. And it's sort of like the latest version of a lost cause myth. It's not different from the whole myth around J6, where these people violently attacked the government to stop the validation of an election. And yet now, after they've been prosecuted, they've been called martyrs, they have been pardoned, and they've even been offered money for what they did. And of course, you and I are familiar with how the Civil War was turned into, some valiant cause by the Slavocracy Confederacy. There's a lot of myths. They're trying to besmirch the great name of Martin Luther King. They're trying to say that Emmett Till deserved what he got. This sort of lying is something that we can't tolerate. We've got to push back against because it always metastasizes into something much more cancerous and much more dangerous. It's a lie. We condemn it, and every decent person must condemn it. And anybody who doesn't has got to be judged as a person who does not condemn murder. And we should ask ourselves why.
Let's put a finer point on all this pardon talk. Even if Donald Trump were to pardon Chauvin, the state convictions you secured would still stand, correct?
Absolutely right. Trump, if Trump pardoned Chauvin, he could pardon the federal conviction, but not the state. But what worries me, Jonathan, is that there are candidates at that convention, particularly the one who won the Republican nomination for governor, another one who got it for attorney general. Well, if they were to win, they could give him a state pardon. And apparently that's what they would be planning to do. So this one is a little bit more dangerous to the rule of law and the great cause of justice. Trump can make a symbolic gesture. He can't free Chauvin. These people here, they could if they won. That's why they cannot be allowed to do that. Not because they're Republicans, but because they have demonstrated moral bankruptcy. That's why.
Keith Ellison, Attorney General of Minnesota, thank you, as always, for coming to The Last Word.